Okay, hello everyone, welcome back. So today I'm going to be talking about mushrooms. So not a lot is known about mushrooms, and even just a few years ago people didn't know a lot. It's especially boomed in the last 5 to 10 years, the mushroom industry. Um, and it's really fantastic when you find out what mushrooms can do. So this might be a slightly long video, but you will really get some benefit from it. So how do mushrooms work? So mushrooms are actually just the fruit of mycelia. So mycelia is like a dense network of interconnected and woven fibers in the soil. So it starts with a spore, or if you want to call it a mushroom seed, but it's really tiny. It will fall into the soil. When two of them meet, they will mate, and then they will reproduce, and they will spread into this dense woven network of cells. And it can spread over hundreds and thousands of kilometers. If it's in a forest, it can spread really, really far, and it can connect many things and species and plants. It's like the internet of the soil. It connects the soil and the trees. They've done research where trees are planted many meters or hundreds of meters apart. So this specific experiment was 3 trees planted about 100 meters apart, and they were connected by this mycelial network, the mushroom network in the soil. Then they would shade one of the trees, and then they can monitor by X-ray and radiography. They can monitor the nutrients flowing. So when they shade a tree, the mycelia takes nutrients to this shaded tree. So that's how trees continue to grow and plants continue to grow even when they are shaded in a forest, because they are connected by this internet, this mycelial network, this connection between them. So it's like a manager that shares the resources between the different plants. So the fruits of this mycelia is a mushroom. So the environment has to be correct. It has to be the correct temperature, humidity, and light conditions, as well as oxygen and carbon dioxide ratio for this fruiting body to actually come up. And then when this fruiting body comes up, under the mushroom in its gills, the spores will form, and the spores will come out, will reproduce, and then the mushroom will decompose again. So the function that the mushroom has in the forest is to decompose damaged plants and trees. It can also be for the healing of the trees. So there are specific kinds of mushrooms that can heal, and then there are mushrooms that just break down, and then there are also parasitic mushrooms and fungal mushrooms which will attack a damaged animal or plant, and then it will decompose it into soil. And the soil that comes after the mushrooms have decomposed something is some of the most wonderful soil that you will ever grow something in. So there are many different kinds of mushrooms. There are only a few that we can eat, around I think 50-ish that we can eat. There might be a little bit more. So it's not advised to go and walk around in the wild and forage for mushrooms unless you are an expert, because there are many different kinds that can be poisonous. But going foraging in the supermarket is also not always really great for mushrooms, because you generally just get a few. And then some of them are even just the same species. So a button mushroom, the big white mushroom, and then the portobello mushroom, they're all the same species, just immature, like an adolescent and the adult form of the mushroom. So some are just tiny, they are just harvested early, and the portobello is the same family, same species, it's just allowed to grow out. So that one also doesn't have as much of a medicinal property as some of these others that I will talk about as well. So the most medicinal mushrooms are usually the ones that grow on wood or hardwood specifically, and I'll talk a little bit about them. So the few that I will mention just quickly, you get reishi or lingzi in Chinese, cordyceps, oyster, turkey tail, lion's mane. You also get the nameko, you get the pinapinto, Chaga, Shiitake, psilocybin, maitake, Enoki. Then there are also a few others, shaggy mane. There's the what's the other one's name? I can't remember the other one's name. Sorry, but there are quite a few: cauliflower mushroom, honey mushroom. So there are quite a few of them, and we only find a handful in the supermarkets, if even there. Then you'll find some of them powdered as well. For example, you find a lot of lion's mane and reishi and turkey tail and cordyceps that will be powdered, because you cannot really eat them fresh because they are very woody and hard. Whereas oyster mushrooms, you get different kinds. You get pink, blue, gray, yellow, and then you get the king oyster as well. So different kinds of oyster mushrooms that have different benefits, and they will look slightly different. So we also don't always find lots of mushrooms in the shops because they do not last very long. They don't have a long shelf life. So it's best to get them fresh if you can, and then you can get them at mainly farmers markets or directly from the source, because they do not really store that well. A lot of restaurants will also have them as part of their dishes. These days, the veganism is booming, and mushrooms are a wonderful meat substitute because they are so packed with nutrients, and some of them are even up to 35% protein, and they also contain a full range of amino acids. So let's get into a little bit more about the mushrooms. So mushrooms are high in protein, as I just mentioned. They're extremely high in protein, extremely high in B vitamins especially, and then they also have some other vitamins and minerals as well. Oh, excuse me. Air conditioner here where I am gives me a bit of a runny nose. It doesn't like this dust and the things coming out of the air conditioner. So, what other benefits do mushrooms have? So, to get the benefit of a mushroom, you have to cook it, because a mushroom has a hard chitin layer, so similar to crustaceans, so like a crab or the shell of a snail, so it's hard. So to break this down, you have to cook it a little bit, so either saute slightly with some garlic butter or oil, or put into a stew or a soup. Especially in the East, they use a lot of mushrooms in stews and soups. Then the medicinal value, they really have a lot of medicinal value. Some of them have been found to be anti-cancer, antibacterial, antiviral. Some of them protect against HIV, and they can fight HIV because it's a virus. The herpes virus they can fight against. It can be anti-candida, antioxidants. It can improve your memory. It can improve the myelin sheathing of your neurons in your brain, helping your neuronal functioning. It can decrease cholesterol, decrease your blood pressure. It can support your liver, your kidneys, your heart, your lungs. It can support your nerve growth, your cellular regeneration. It can modulate and even treat diabetes and your blood glucose. So some of these mushrooms are extremely beneficial to your health, and some of them, they are the precursors. They are used for medication that you will get from a doctor or prescribed to you. So for example, oyster mushrooms contain an isomer of a statin drug, statin medication. So you can take an oyster mushroom that will decrease your cholesterol without having the negative side effects of a statin drug medication. So the difference between a wild mushroom and also a cultivated mushroom. Wild mushrooms will have higher levels of micronutrients and beneficial things in them, whereas compared to the cultivated one, unless you are cultivating the mushrooms on hardwood substrate, so oak or acacia, so the specific hardwood, if you grow it on there, then wonderful. But if it's grown in a lab, in a culture, on a synthetic medium, then it might not have all of the beneficial substances. So, as I said, mushrooms are extremely beneficial, and you can choose, you can like pick and choose which one you want to have according to what benefits you want in your body. So for example, if you want to have your nerve growth and your myelin sheathing improve, and your memory and your brain function to improve, you might take lion's mane or reishi. If you want, like I said, your cholesterol lowering and heart supporting, then you can have an oyster mushroom. If you want to increase your performance and your clarity and your stamina, you could take cordyceps, which is extremely good for that. If you want to have anti-inflammatory one, you might also take something like a reishi. If you want the anti-cancer benefits, you might take something like the turkey tail or shiitake. So there are many different benefits to it. They've even used the psilocybin mushroom to treat psychosis and depression and anxiety disorders, and the cluster headaches, also called suicide headaches. They've used the psilocybin mushrooms to treat those as well. So mushrooms are fantastic. They are the recyclers of the forest. They make soil, they build soil, they communicate between the different plants, increasing their productivity, and it's also really fantastic in your bodies. So why all of these beneficial substances are in the mushrooms is so that they can survive. Mushrooms compete with other fungi and bacteria, so they need to have antibacterial and antiviral properties to keep on producing and reproducing. So when the fruit body, the mushroom, comes out, it is infused with antiviral, antibacterial properties so that it can survive and spread its spores. So that is why these mushrooms are so medicinal, is because they need to survive in an environment that contains bacteria and viruses. So mushrooms are wonderful. I'm just at the tip of the iceberg of learning about mushrooms, but the little bit that I've learned so far has blown my mind and has shown me how wonderful it can be. Mushrooms can be used as treatments as opposed to medication that might have long lists of side effects. So I hope you found some benefits in this, and you've enjoyed learning about mushrooms and another part of God's wonderful creation. So I hope you have a wonderful day, stay healthy as always, and to God be the glory.